We are now recording. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Digital and Scaled Success. And today with Maria Lunney. And she's going to tell us about customer success, digital success, and a lot more. I'll let her actually handle what this is all about. Again, we're doing this every month. I'll give us a B minus in terms of hitting every month, maybe a little bit less than that. So we're going to get back on track and make sure we do this every month. Alex and Sam are definitely partners in crime in organizing these. And then Maria's also has set up this great Slack channel where you can see a copy of the recording of this afterwards. We'll also share a recording as well as in that Slack channel, other great information. So I'm going to pass the baton to Marie. And do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I got to rag on you a little bit, Scott, because my name's Marie Lunney.
Lunney, sorry.
Lunney like money is what I say.
Lunney
We've known each other long enough. I feel like when you stare at people's last names and never get the chance to pronounce them.
You can call me Wilder.
Disaster. Yeah, fair. So hi, everyone. My name is Marie Lunney. I currently run digital customer success at Bynder. This is my third company where I've built out scaled or digital customer success. Along that journey, I've learned a lot and hoping to share some of that with you today, and focused on how to scale your tech stack and some frameworks that I've used that have been really helpful in cutting through noise, building budget, and finding the right solution. So excited to share those frameworks with you today, and hoping to have also a conversation at the end. So Scott, if you're able to present, we can.
I will be your assistant today.
And of course, I chose to do can you go into present mode? Upper right-hand corner. Perfect. And I think if you click present full screen and then present, that should be it. Sorry, this is the presenter view. So if you click out of this, X out of this window, present, perfect.
There we
go.
Thank you.
Beautiful. We did it. All right. Next slide, please. So quick little agenda. I'm going to go into some of the pitfalls that I've fallen into, challenges that I've seen in amongst my peers as well when we have these conversations when it comes to how to successfully scale our tech stack. And then go into the benefits of these frameworks, show those frameworks with you a little bit more. And then, as I mentioned, have hopefully a lively discussion at the end of how you've maybe done this before. Go to the next slide, please. So the challenges, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like I'm drinking from the fire hose of tools, especially CS tools, and now with AI coming out, more and more CS specific fit for purpose tools are available, which is one, really exciting, because I feel like, especially in our world, we've had to hack maybe sales tools or marketing tools for what we want to do. And now we're getting purpose fit tools for CS, but it's also quite overwhelming of, which tool do I go with? When am I ready for that tool? How do I make sure that if I choose this tool, it's going to integrate into my tech stack later? Which one do I prioritize? So that's a lot of noise to cut through. The second challenge or pitfall that I see is what I'm calling monkey see, monkey do. So you see what other people are doing, and inherently, as we all are on this call today, learning about what do other people do and what's worked for them. We do that with tooling as well. And so we might see, so-and-so has launched a community, or my competitor has just invested in an AI bot. We have to do that. That's the next thing that we have to do, without pausing and asking, is your company ready for that tool? And also, are your customers receptive to that tool? So we'll talk a lot more about how do you pressure test that. And then third is lack of budget. So maybe the opposite of number one is you have a tool in mind, but you don't necessarily have the budget to invest in that tool, or you've chosen to invest in one tool and not the other, but you still have a need for solving that problem. So how do you get budget or buy-in to build this business case for a tool? Next slide. So I'm going to go over 2 frameworks that I've used to help cut through this noise, challenge assumptions. So the assumption that, a tool is the right solution or this tool is the right solution. Validate your readiness at your business and also with your customers, and then build out that business case for a tool if, in fact, that is the right solution. So we'll go into the next slide for framework number 1. And I want to fully own that I'm not creating, brand new frameworks. These frameworks are used a lot in product development. They're used a lot in design thinking. I'm hopeful that maybe if they're not new to you, it's a new way of applying them to these problems. So the first one is a prioritization matrix. It's really simply understanding, resources versus impact for prioritizing your problems or the problems that you're trying to solve, maybe with tooling. I've found this really helpful to do in really like micro settings if you're an individual contributor, but also on a team level. I've ran this project for yearly planning. And it really helps understand everyone has great ideas, but understanding where do they stack up next to each other and where should you invest. So once you plot these things on this impact versus resources, and when you think about resources, think about time, effort, money, human capital, and then impact is how large of an effect will that have on the goals that you're trying to achieve, whether that be increasing adoption, improving retention, decreasing churn, things of the sort. So if you go to the next slide, I will showcase an example of this. So thinking about specifically customer education, I've done this before with my customer education team and mapped out, okay, what are the things that we would like to invest in or build? And I'll highlight some of these points, but we were looking at a tool for auto updating some of our product videos, which is called Vidiate. And it's a really expensive tool. It's a really interesting solution that they are providing. I don't know how many of you are owning customer education, but one of the challenges is always how do you keep your content up to date, especially when it comes to video. And Vidiate has a solution for that. The challenge is it's really expensive, and we had to evaluate in our own business what would be the impact of investing in that tool. And where we're at currently with our current, video library is we don't have that many videos, and our product isn't going out of date or changing that much to require these auto updates. So that's why you can see that it falls into that avoid bucket. Versus where we're strategically investing is, let's say, a training team or an LMS. So these are things that are more long-term. They're going to have a large impact. They also are expensive, but that investment is worth it. Now, thinking about what are things that we could do that are maybe quick wins to get us along that way. Maybe they have a lower impact, but they're also require less resources, is where we fall into the quick wins, upper left quadrant. So building out a video hub and centralizing our live training into a calendar so they're more accessible to our customers. Really easy things that are going to have a large impact. versus the backlog is things that are going to have low impact, but also don't take that much time. So these are things that we'll do when we have time, maybe in the middle of the quarter when things feel safe and easy. I don't know if you feel that way as well in the middle of the quarters. So example of how we've used this for prioritizing our problems. And then we're going to focus on, okay, how do we now cut through the noise and figure out the right solution, especially for those strategic investments. So if you go to the next slide. This is the second framework. So once you define, the problems and potential solutions, those strategic investments that you would love to maybe invest in a new tool, we're going to apply an experiment first approach. So the process is 5 steps. So what is the pain point that you're trying to solve? 2, what is your expected outcome of being able to solve that problem? And then 3, what are potential solutions? And then you can, this is the step where you can use that prioritization matrix as well to design potential solutions. And ask yourself, how can I do this even quicker or even cheaper? And you're going to start to get to the point of mapping out from probably upper right-hand quadrant to that lower left-hand quadrant. And you're going to then focus on those quick wins in the upper left-hand quadrant for this low-cost experiment. And 4th is you're going to, it's not written here, but you're going to define your metrics for success, your KPIs for success. But the one of those KPIs should be a voice of the customer metric. And I'll get into why that's so important on the next slide. But I really wanted to stress that. And then last is measuring and iterating. So this is where oftentimes you'll be surprised, or sometimes you've validated your approach and now you've built a business case to be able to take that and say, hey, look, it's working. If we invest this money, we can tenfold these results. So if we go to the next slide, here's some examples of how I've used this. Assumption, we believe that providing a structured certification course for new admins will reduce the need for one-to-one onboarding and improve self-sufficiency. One of the previous companies I was working at, we saw that in our one segment of customers, we had really repeatable onboardings. So the use case and the setup was pretty much always the same. And so we saw an opportunity where we could scale these onboardings and really minimize the costs internally and be able to continue to grow our customer base without the need to hire additional CSMs to run these onboardings. So the initial thought was like, oh, we need an in-app tool to do self-guided onboardings, or we need a fancy dancy LMS to do prescriptive onboardings. But we wanted to validate this assumption, and we also wanted to see results very quickly, as opposed to building a whole business case and then RFPing different tools and choosing one, and you blink and it's been 6 months to a year and you're just now having your onboarding with this new tool. So we decided to validate this and also see some quicker results by creating a series of 5 short form training videos that covered the core onboarding topics. And then we sent them to the next 20 new admins. And to measure this, we tracked video watch rates. We had quizzes at the end. We also were looking at our NPS of onboarding and looking at time to onboard. So we expected that at least to be successful for this experiment, at least 70% of participants would complete the training, and our NPS would remain. So one thing I wanted to call out that isn't noted on this slide is before we ran this experiment, we actually ran a different one. We started out with doing cohort onboardings, and again measured similar metrics, and it was a failure. It did not go well. Customers were not happy with that. So we did reduce our time to onboard, but customers found that they had to compete for airtime on the onboardings. And they also found that because we were scheduling these group onboardings, they really had to bend to our schedule versus us to them. So we pivoted to this solution that was much more, do it on your own time, and allowed for some one-on-one time with a CSM at the end of completing these series of five videos and the quiz. So just an example of how you can also iterate. If you go to the next slide, there's one more example. Which is what I just talked about. Sorry, I haven't looked at this slide in a while, but let's pivot to you guys. I want to open it up and see if you guys have maybe implemented a tool that didn't yield the results you expected, and see if you have any ideas of how you could design a low-cost experiment to find the right solution.
One question I have, which is not directly related to, not to answering your question, is so you have your own methodology. At what point do you share your methodology with other folks in the company? Like, do you share, like, this is how we're going to approach it when you present, or do you yeah, I'm just curious, you have your own approach. A lot of companies have their own frameworks. I'm just curious, at what point do you say, like, this is the framework I'm going to use to evaluate this new tool process?
I think it depends. Like I said, so the prioritization framework on a macro scale, I use probably once a year for yearly planning. And then on a micro scale, I even apply that to my own project management. So, I have it built into my project management tool to quickly assess the impact versus resources. And that helps me prioritize like quarterly projects. From the experiment approach, usually that is a impact of either it's an inbound, my CCO or someone from the executive board is saying, hey, we should really do this thing. And candidly, usually I don't get the budget to be able to do that thing. So I say, okay, I'm going to do this experiment, and that helps me then get the budget. A third framework that I'll share in the follow-up that I use in conjunction with this is maybe the opposite of, or not opposite, but I've had times where executives had asked work maybe like mid-flight in a program that I'm building out. So it's not necessarily a tooling question, but it is an investment question of them saying, oh, we should really do this, that, and the other thing in addition to what you're already building. And I say, great, you can, that will make it more expensive and take more time, and I lay out three options for them of saying, here's three options, and one is going to take less time, be less expensive, be low quality. So the positive is time savings. Here's another option. You can invest in a little bit more, increase the quality, but it's going to take a little bit more time and be a little bit more expensive. Or you can have the highest quality, but it's going to take the most amount of time and be the most expensive. Depending on what it is, sometimes it takes less time if you invest in the tool. So that's another framework then I would surface to other people. I hope that answers your question. I think it's such a, as most things are, it's a depends answer.
Yeah. And a lot of it's corporate culture and things like that. I mean, I've been in companies where they're like, this is the framework you need to use to evaluate things. And others, it's like, just you use what you want and come back with a recommendation. So,
Oh, if you're asking about like if you then are evaluating actual tools, I typically will build out like a what's your needs and what's your wants, and then evaluate each tool based off of that.
mhm,
Um, I think this is more of like the frameworks that I shared today are before you even get to potential tools.
got it. I don't know if others have questions. I have a few more, but do others? Yep.
Well, I have a quick sort of slightly different. One of the issues that I've had in the past was actually identifying the bottlenecks themselves, right? So it was a scale-up environment, and there was friction everywhere constantly, and figuring out exactly, you know, narrowing into the actual issues, the core problems, rather than all the symptoms that are floating around the office, was a challenge that I kind of struggled with. And eventually, like, some solution would reveal itself, but like the process, I realized was reactionary and lagged a great deal longer than I wish it had. So I wonder if there's any kind of methodologies that anyone here in this call might have to assess a bit more accurately where the frictions, what kind of frictions you can identify, and then target with maybe tooling or process or whatever.
You mean frictions in terms of customer experience or frictions in terms of?
Yeah, or internal, right? Between teams, the way that like customers bounce back and forth. Not necessarily the customer experience per se using the tool.
Mhm.
That would be something different entirely. That's a product side
Yeah.
conversation, but
Not necessarily a framework, but what comes to mind is like customer journey mapping or service delivery mapping and understanding. Sometimes it's helpful to do that as a workshop with different stakeholders from different groups, but that also requires them to be collaborative. And the environment that I'm hearing you describe maybe is there's
no, that
things said behind closed
that could have
doors.
worked. That could have worked. Well, if you
um,
if you get it out on paper, then
yeah.
we can say, hey, this one spot in this
Yeah.
in the
Because
map that.
everyone's going to say, oh, this is where, we need to fix, or this is the most important. But if you connect then the dots of there might be multiple friction points, but where's the root cause, and also where's the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit to address? That's been helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
just
really
got
good.
back from an offsite in Phoenix where we had a lot of cross-functional teams, and we did we basically picked different processes that we wanted to work on, and it was a cross-functional team where we mapped out everything and then looked at pain points, but we also did it from like the current state to the desired state. And I think the next thing was just before we even started, like what was the objective? Whether it's customer focused or even employee focused, in terms of like efficiency and things like that. I'm trying to think what else. It was a really good exercise, and more than happy to talk more about it. Obviously, it costs something, but having a third party facilitator helps a lot as well. Because then, if there's any kind of politics or I don't like Sam, so I don't want to work with Sam. They'll jump in and help diffuse that.
Nobody likes Sam. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Everybody loves Sam. She's awesome. Um, so yeah.
Oh, there is the Sam in the call. Hi. I thought we were talking abstract, hypothetical.
Um,
Like, oh, that's Sam. Don't worry about it.
yeah. I know you weren't talking directly about customers, but also, using customer effort scores is really interesting to use, and whether it's platform specific or even cross platform. I forget the name of the book. There's a really good book that probably somebody here will think of about customer effort scores. But we look at it, like I said, from a platform perspective, but then also from a journey perspective as well across platform.
Okay. And it's sort of an assessment of customer effort, like story points or clicks or time spent or
Yeah, where
things
do
like
they
that.
experience friction? I mean, some people do it with quantitative info like you're talking about. Some people do it with like qualitative, where they ask users. I saw that Marie had in her diagram, she had Hotjar. So that's a really good tool to use as well. And it's really inexpensive and it's pretty easy to install. So right there, you're kind of looking at, you could do it at the aggregate level, like seeing where people go on the site. I assume we're talking about a site here, and where they don't go, and you can do it at like aggregate level. Where you can watch individual videos. And I'm not saying you should sit there and watch thousands of videos, but the rule of 10 works for me. If I watch 10, I get a good sense of like what people are experiencing friction. Just kind of stop me if I'm going off on a tangent. So we all on our search engines have, on our search results page have these ability on the left-hand side to further sort your search results. Right, you search on, say, everybody's grocery store. You search on apples, and then on the left-hand side, it could be like, do you want like apples from the United States or apples from another country, whatever. Really interesting that the last two companies I've looked at using Hotjar and then also looking at clicks, nobody's like very small percentage of people are clicking on that. Right, so it's not direct friction I'm talking about, but it's like a distraction friction type of friction.
It's noise.
Noise, thank you. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts from folks?
I don't know if he's trying to log on or not, but if you can hear me, I will send you the recording.
I can jump in quick. Thank you. It's super helpful. For quick Martin context, I'm actually stepping into my first digital role in a few weeks. So super excited, and just having, it's a new role to a company that has a CS program now, but not digital. So I think having a framework is going to be interesting. I don't quite know what to expect in terms of I think leadership has some ideas, and then probably other people will do. So I think, again, I don't know how much control I'll have over saying yes and no to things. I assume that will be limited, certainly in the beginning, and about building relationships. But if anyone else has other thoughts on just kind of stepping in and building out, I imagine there'll be a lot of ideas, and then I just need to prioritize and figure out kind of where I line up. And obviously, learning the company and learning the tools is step one as well. But I guess, any thoughts on any of that, I would definitely appreciate.
There's a really good Slack channel you should check out.
I have so many thoughts.
Yeah,
so
I was signing up for it today, so thank you.
Yes, if you're, I don't think we showed that slide, but DCS Connect. If you find me on LinkedIn, you should be able to, then, Scott, you'll also share here. It's in this space, but that's a Slack channel for digital customer success professionals that I created. It's pretty lively. People are willing to share. I also have on my LinkedIn top 5 mistakes when starting a digital or scaled motion. So check that one out. My instant thoughts were like, I have a lot of questions. Do you have a team reporting to you? Or will you be able to hire?
So I am the team currently. I think the thought is, so there's a CS team, but in terms of digital, yes. I am the first and only currently. We had discussion during the interview that the plan is to build it out. I don't know what that relationship would be, if it'd be another me or levels, but yeah, it's still a very early stage. So
will you be owning a book of business, or will you be building out more of like the scaled programs to support the CSMs owning the book of business?
Yeah, it's a little of both. So I will actually have a small book of business, which I think is actually helpful, just so I also know the customers and have some kind of hand-to-hand or face-to-face interaction with them. But yeah, then otherwise it's building out kind of more as a strategy than a segment.
Okay, great. Yeah, my biggest thing is, I think a lot of executives, especially in our current climate, they see scale as like, a silver bullet. And it's the very much like do more with less mentality. And if you think of a diagram where like the X axis is time and the Y is value, if you hire a CSM, you're going to get quick value, they have to ramp, but that value is somewhat finite. They can only manage the amount of book of business that they can. Versus with scale, it's going to take longer to build out, but the value is exponential because it just continues to scale from there. And I think setting that expectation with executives from the get-go is really important to say, it's going to take time to build out these. It's dependent on data and systems, and you as one human. And in some cases, you will have to invest in tooling to be able to get more exponential value. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice, is to really continue to stress that message.
Thank you.
I might add that you're going to become the popular man on campus. So everybody's going to say, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Just start simple with one thing, because you are, as you pointed out, you're going to be limited with data. You're going to be limited with tools. And just put, try and get some quick points on the board. So that will help with resources, but also, start with one thing. And
Thank you. Yeah, I think that framework, my thought is, having a framework to kind of test ideas, or at least kind of scope them. And then, my thought is having a calendar, or just a way to say, that's a great idea. Here's the calendar I have now. This is where it plots in, if I have control over that, or they'll tell me where it does. But, just having a way to kind of, as you showed that backlog, I like that idea. I think there'll be a large backlog to start. So
definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
What I found recently, moved into the digital CS program role full-time beginning of this year, is as I've been kind of building that out a bit more, not just for scale, but for all of customer success, I've seen a lot of project overlap, things where I could tack on to that are already running or being built that I should be involved in, or I want to just reduce the redundancy of projects being executed. So a lot of questions to marketing, to product, to other CSMs, it's being done, and just understanding what their goals are for the year and what projects are being worked on.
That's how, I imagine I need to ask a lot of questions, and kind of you'll start to tie the pieces together. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Other folks, questions? Going once, going twice.
I'm just gonna pull up the Slack and put it in the chat so you guys have access to it. So that's the request form. And then there's the 5 mistakes to avoid when starting DCS.
You should pin that in the Slack channel too.
Just shameless self-promotion.
Hey.
I feel like I can only go so far in my own Slack community. This one also might be helpful, Martin, is how to measure your impact.
Thank you. Yeah, this is all great. I'm signing up for the Slack right now.
Nice.
Okay. No more questions? This has been great. I've been drawing your framework on my index card here. So, and plotting out my current, the asks that people have of my group. So thank you. So again, I will share a recording of this. You have the link to DCS Connect. And then Sam, I think you're up next month. So as soon as we nail down the details of that, we'll share that with everybody. And then spread the word, either around the DCS channel, DCS Slack channel, DCS Connect Slack channel, say that 10 times, or around these events. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much, Scott.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's your time, guys. Appreciate it. Bye now.